Hello viewers, you are welcome to this tutorial. This session is to introduce us to the else statement and finally statement within handling errors. So we know what the try does, we know what the except does, we know what the specific except and the general except does. Okay, so if you have no idea of try and except, please watch the previous tutorial or the beginning of my error handling tutorials. But if you are cool, then let's just jump into what we have to do. Okay, so after trying and after accepting, we can use an else. How can we use an else? So the else is, now if none of the except works, use the else. Work, it doesn't mean the else is an exception handling. What the else does is, should there be no error in the code, meaning none of the except to be executed. So if none of the except is executed, then show me this. So see what happens if I have else print. Oh, you did so well. You had no errors. Okay, so this is what I want to display to the user. You did so well, you had no errors. So if I should run this code and I handle zero division error, I will not see it. Okay, now I made a mistake to type this, that's why I seen this there. So just check, if I handle zero division errors, number cannot be divided by zero. So if the except if the except is handled, there's nothing like except. If except is handled, the else will not be executed. So if I should run the code again and I have a string and I should enter, it says you need to enter only integer values. The else will not be executed. But if none of the except is executed, meaning there was no error within our code, or there was no error, a runtime error, so I enter a right value, then it tells me you did so well, you had no errors, and it gives me the print statement. Now those of you who watched the previous tutorial, I made a mistake with this where I said you need to enter only string values. It was supposed to be integer values, not string values. So if you saw that, sorry for that statement, it was supposed to be integer. Okay, so in the print statement, integer, not string. Okay, so this is what the else does. Now what is the use of the else within our code? In case you want to give the user some points, so the user made no mistake, because the possibility of mistakes occurring here is either the user enters a string or the user enters 0, and that is not what we want. So maybe you are playing a game, you want to give the user points. So if you make no mistake, you have 3 points. So that actually comes here, you have 3 points. Okay, why? Because the user made no mistake or made no mistakes. Okay, so the except, if it escaped, then it comes to else. And the only reason the except to be escaped is if there is no error within the runtime. Okay, during execution, if there is no zero division error, there is no value error, and there is no any other error we have no idea about, then the except executes. So we want to tell the user he has done so well, he has 3 points. So that is the use of the else. So if you want to do an additional stuff, you can work perfectly without an else. But if you want to do some other thing, use the else. And there's another one called finally. Now, the finally is, whether you like it or not, I'm displaying myself. So I will always display. Display. Okay, so this is what the finally does. The finally doesn't really consider what happens at the top. So far as you've called the try and the try execute, the finally will run whether the else is executed, except no matter what happens, it will run. So if I have a good value, I will have my you have 3 points displayed. Why? Because none of the exceptions were handled, so the else will be executed. Then after the else has been executed, you say I will always display. Now let me run it again and have a zero division error. It gives me number cannot be divided by 0, and it still says I will always display. Okay, so finally will display no matter what. If I have a string error, it will say you need to enter only integer values, and it still says I will always display. Okay, so this one of the things with the finally. Now why should we need finally? When I'm dealing with a function, and inside the function I like to return a value, so maybe I want to try what I will do and do exceptions, then after I would like to return a value. So you can work perfectly without the else. You can ignore the else and deal with the family. Not family, not nuclear extended family. It's finally. So I can only bring the finally here, so no matter what happens, I have my finally. Okay, so I can use the finally to return a value, or just return this value. Maybe whatever happens here, pick the value here and return it outside the function, if you already know what the function does and how to return values. Or I can say, if the user handles errors, if the user finds errors, or if you find error within the code or within the runtime, and I pick the error, return that error within the finally. So I'll say finally return that particular error. Those of you who are good at functions, or I can say else if there is a 3 point, return the 3 points within the finally. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to talk about right now. I'll give you clear examples of how to do it finally and how to do it else and so many things in the next tutorial. So what I want you to understand is the try gives Python a prompt, the exception with specifics you use to handle specific errors, and like this one as well, and the general except is used to handle all kinds of unknown errors that could occur. The else means if none of these are executed as a result of no error being found, then display this. And the finally means that if everything is displayed, whether something is displayed or not, I want you to show me, so we can have our own lines of code within the finally. Things we want to do, external things, can really go through the finally. So thank you for viewing. Watch out for the next tutorial where we'll move more enhanced of what we have to do with error handling. So like the videos if they're informative for you, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to receive all updates, and leave any questions or comments you have within the chat box below. Thank you.